In this episode of the Photo Nerds podcast, Gary's onions make Paul cry with laughter. We argue film versus digital photography, simplify focusing, and discuss if you can make money by selling prints.
Oh,
See, I'm just
Didn't
thinking.
you have a question, Gary?
I'm just thinking I shouldn't have drunk Coke because it causes wind.
right. Well, let me throw a question at you then. Let's go back. Film cameras, analog. We mentioned on the last podcast about how disposable, personally, I feel how disposable digital photography is nowadays. Well, that works in exactly the same way as music.
Yeah.
Now, again, it's something that the younger end will probably not really understand or associate. This might just sound like an old man talking about yesteryear, and I don't want it to. And the reason why I'm saying this now is because vinyl records, for instance, there's a massive resurgence of vinyl records.
Yeah.
And the reason why, in my opinion, that is the case is because people like the event of going through your music collection, slowly looking at the sleeves, remembering fond times from a sleeve, pulling a sleeve out, pulling a record out, putting it on the deck, putting a record player on the record, and then cranking it up and physically moving it to certain songs or flipping it over when you're halfway through an album. Now, that might sound quite archaic by today's standards, but it was an event. It made you sit up and, does that make sense? It makes sense. You sit up and enjoy the record that you've put on. Wherefore now, Alexa, take that. And Alexa's plays take that in the background, and it becomes a disposable song.
Which I think is awesome because I think we're looking at that through rose-tinted spectacles, and I remember scratch records and dust on the stylus and stylus breaking. And
but reverting that back to photography, which obviously is what this vlog is all about, film cameras are making a massive comeback.
Are they?
I personally last year bought a medium format camera. I'll tell you that tale in a second. But I bought a medium format camera and it cost me £150. Now that very same camera is going for over £350 simply because lots of people want to work backwards and find out what people like me are talking about.
Yeah. Gary, do you think that that's people who used to shoot film that now shoot digital that have gone back to film, or do you think it's the younger generation that never shot film and they think it's going to be something a wee bit different or a wee bit special to go back to film?
I mean, I don't know the answer to that question. I imagine it's a bit of both.
Yeah.
But from my perspective is that if you hold a film camera, and I don't want to sound all sentimental or academic talking about yesteryear, where digital photography is so much better nowadays.
You do sound like that, though.
Yeah, sorry, I know. I'm coming across like that. But I think if you held a film camera and then started to use it, it would make you a photographer before it would make you a landscape photographer. Because I could teach you to be a landscape photographer in 10 minutes to a certain degree.
Right. Yeah, okay. I do agree to some extent with you there, although there's a bit I disagree on there as well. I do think I personally think there's a lot to gain as a landscape photographer by practicing other areas of photography. So I kind of agree with you on that point. But I don't see any way that, say if you're a younger photographer, 10 years younger than me, so you've never shot film, I don't think there's, or you're new to photography, I don't think there's any way that going back to shoot film is going to benefit me as a photographer.
Oh, well look, I'll answer that in one simple sentence. Take your Canon 5D Mark IV and smash the screen on the back.
Yeah.
And use your camera. Work with your camera and look how much more difficult it is, how much more the thought process would be a lot more complicated. In other words, you'd have to really be concise about everything you're doing. Looking through your viewfinder, making sure your composition is spot on. What about your light meter? Now you can't physically take a picture and look for anything that's blinking. You can't take a picture and look at your histogram and realize
that's just going to make things more difficult, though. It's not going to make it. It's not going to make my final pictures better.
no, and I didn't say it would, but it's the process and the thought process that would completely change from just taking a picture, looking at the result at the back of the screen. Oh yeah, there's a bit of blinking in the sky. I better put a neutral density filter on there. You're just simply not pointing and shooting, because that's the wrong term. You're taking a picture, looking at the results, and then fixing anything that might need fixing. I don't have a problem with that. I think digital photography in that sense is awesome. But if you want to learn to be a photographer before learning to be a landscape photographer, as an example, me personally, I feel that you would learn more from buying just a cheap analog or film camera and going out and working. But it's the whole process as well. Like, imagine you've just been out, you've taken some pictures. You don't know for a week whether your pictures are any good or not.
Yeah, I do like the. I do
you
like
remember that?
I do.
I do like the comparison of music to photography. I think there's a lot in that. However, I don't think your vinyl to film comparison works, because with vinyl, I think part of the reason vinyl has come back is because, yes, there is that tactile thing of pulling the LP out of the sleeve with the big artwork on it as well. That's a nice thing to do. But you can do that with digital photography, because if you're printing, you get that same experience. The other thing about listening to vinyls is listening to that whole record as one record, rather than just picking a song off Alexa. Like, it's not just play this song, and it's become that bite-sized thing rather than that full experience. I don't think that really relates to doing film photography. It was a faff doing film photography. It was restrictive as well. It was exclusive. It made it more exclusive because it was more expensive, particularly if you wanted to do any post-production in the darkroom. And when I started doing film. I never had an SLR camera, but I had a variety of little sort of snapshot cameras on film, developed my own film and stuff. But it was later down that line I got sick of it, and it wasn't until the early dawn of digital photography that I sort of got back into it in my sort of early 20s. And I've never looked back. And I think what you're talking about, going out to do landscape photography with film, whether you take different ISO grade films with you or what, depending on the lighting conditions, that sounds like an interesting exercise, and possibly it would be something I'd be interested in doing. But I don't think it would particularly help me as a new photographer, or help me as an existing photographer. I think it almost. I wouldn't want people to think that in order to be a decent landscape photographer, you've got to do some film at some point.
No, I'm not. I'm not suggesting that. I'm not suggesting that for a minute. But let's talk about just one of the three elements: shutter speed. Shutter speed controls movement. Now, it's all well and good to stand next to fast flowing water, take a picture, instantly look in the back of your camera, which is brilliant, by the way. But instantly look at the movement that a particular shutter speed has on fast moving water, and then deciding there and then if you like that or not, and then change the shutter speed accordingly, which is quite good. But imagine if you had to think that process through without the ability of seeing the picture on the back of your screen that you just took. Now you've got to start thinking about the shutter speed relative to how fast something's moving, how close you are to a subject, and so on. All these things would now play part of your thought process and your camera setup, as opposed to, this looks good, take a picture, I like the movement, but I want more movement, so we'll slow our shutter speed down even more, less movement, so we'll increase our shutter speed, blah, blah, blah. That's
I think I do that anyway
saying.
with digital photography. Like if you've got fast moving clouds and you want to do a long exposure photograph, you might think about quite how long you want your exposure to be. If it's slow moving, you might want an even longer exposure. But I think I do that anyway.
See, I can see where both of you are coming from. You mentioned about vinyl. The reason that people have gone to vinyl is because they say it's a softer type of sound that comes out of vinyl compared to digital. I was brought kicking and screaming into the digital age of photography. I didn't like the fact that people post-processed, and I thought it was cheating. And I think I mentioned that on a previous podcast. But I want to know what you think the benefits, other than what you've mentioned, which you could do anyway with the digital camera, if you just decided, right, okay, I'm just going to shoot in a certain way. What benefits you're going to get going back to film over digital, and why are people going back to film? Are they going back to film because the final production of the shot looks like a film shot compared to a digital image?
No, I think it's the workflow.
Right.
I honestly think it's the workflow. It's just take your digital camera and tape up the back of the screen. That's all you need to do.
Yeah.
And then just try and work with your camera. And it's a completely different ballgame if you can't instantly see the result.
Yeah.
But it's something that people are used to doing now, by the way.
This ties back into what I was just about to say, is that we are living in a society which is hectic. So we've got emails flying left, right and centre, Facebook, Twitter, and that's there's a generation now that have grown up like that.
Definitely less patience.
Absolutely. Instagram, you put an image on, you get 100 likes, and then you put the next image on, you get 100 likes. YouTube, daily vlogs going out. One person watches a vlog one day, gets 1 million views. Casey and I start that type of person. And then the next day they're putting another one out because they've got to feed that elephant. That's the wrong terminology, but they've got to feed that whole process. Young people these days, I've got an 11-year-old daughter, and it's one thing after another, and asking them and saying go back to film, they would get demotivated very, very quickly because society is running so fast these days.
In the sense that they wouldn't want to do it.
They would get demotivated because they would go out, they would shoot like we all did, shoot 36 exposures, get home.
Where's the picture?
Absolutely.
Where's the picture?
And they'd get 1 or 2 shots. I think
they've got a point.
Yeah, they have. But maybe the reason that people, I would love to see the demographics of who is now shooting film and why it's becoming more popular. Whether it's older people like us that are nostalgic and going back to it, or whether it's the younger generation that are just saying, you know what, I've had enough of the stress and the speed of everything, and I just want to slow everything down.
I don't think there are young people shooting film, but it's not a lack of things being instant, because that's the whole point with the Fujifilm Instax, isn't it? Is that you've got what essentially we knew as a Polaroid, is now a Fujifilm Instax. It just creates these instant pictures, but they're film and they're developed there in front of your eyes. I think there was an element of that being quite nice, where you're flicking your Polaroid picture around, but like it's nice seeing it come to life, isn't it?
Yeah.
I bought one of those originally, by the way, in the 70s.
Really?
What, Polaroid?
Yeah, originally when it first came
remember
out,
when it
even before colour.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Have you had any recent experience of doing landscape photography
With a Polaroid camera.
on film then?
His best images are instant Polaroids.
Yeah. Well, I'll make this tale very brief. I bought a medium format camera last year because I wanted to do a bit of vlogging, going back into film. And long story short, went out, created a vlog, took some what I consider to be really nice pictures. The whole thought process, it makes you slow down and everything. Long story short, I sent the pictures off to be developed. I got the pictures coming back, because one of the main things I wanted to do as well is when I got them developed, you can actually get them developed and have them scan the pictures for you so they come back in a digital format. So at the end of the day, not only have you got a printed copy, but you've also got a digital file you could still post-process through your normal means. And that kind of got me excited as well. Anyway, long story short, I put all that hard work into a video or a vlog, and when the pictures came back, they were blank, all blank. All blank. Now, that's not me.
Was that user error, or was it
That's
the
definitely
company?
not user error, so I can only assume that the second-hand camera I bought on eBay is faulty.
That sounds...
And I'm not touched it since.
Can you smell something?
I reckon that sounds, to be fair, I think that sounds like the lab have mucked it up. But like,
Yes,
Because
well,
they're probably not developing that much
How many
medium
times?
format
How many
images, are
times
they?
did that?
well, no.
happen?
What actually happened was when I was waiting for the film to come back, I contacted them and I said, "Look, I've paid for it, and could you do it all online now? It's all very good." Sent the film off, and they came back saying, "No, we haven't got any record of having your film." So of course I kicked off with them, and then 2 weeks later, I got a really nice phone call from the lab. I won't mention which lab it was, and they said, "Oh, we found your film. It's just arrived in the post." That's just nonsense. That's 2 weeks later. That's just absolute nonsense. So basically, somebody just found it under a pile. And because of that, and because I kicked off, and I'd already got my money back, by the way, because I kicked off, because they'd lost my film, and now all of a sudden they've come back and said, "Oh, by the way, I'm sorry, Mr. Goff, but all your pictures are blank."
Yeah.
And I thought, yeah, really.
But doesn't that smack of a ball ache from when you used to do film photography?
Well,
Yeah.
I've done,
And you'd get
Faff.
out of 24, you'd get 20 of them which were absolute crap, and then 4 which were good. And that might be down to your ability as a photographer. It might be down to
yeah, but that's the excitement of it.
yeah, I know.
Do you ever watch Onions?
Yeah,
Steve Onions? is it?
Yeah.
Stephen. I hope I'm pronouncing it. Do you ever watch him?
Oh, he's-
He does a lot. He's got a YouTube
he doesn't
channel.
pronounce his name Onions.
No,
It doesn't sound right.
no, but that's how it. If you're watching with at least.
I think he's.
But I find his YouTube channel very fascinating. He does film.
I think he pronounces it Onions.
Maybe you can message
How do you know
us
he
later.
doesn't?
I don't know. O'Nions, I think it is.
Oh, nine. Well, it might be O'Nions, but I'm just. Anyway, he'll understand.
Maybe you can get in touch and let us know. Teach you how to say his name properly.
Sorry,
But he does do great.
he does
vlogs
fantastic,
and great
vlogs.
images.
Yeah, fantastic. Vlogs.
As someone with a surname that no one can say, no, I feel for him.
Yeah.
That's rich coming from you.
That's what I sympathise.
I know. Try and make my name different. I have to put a G in the middle of it.
Oh God. Well, I mean, okay, this is awkward now because I'm making it sound like I'm just the old one of the group. But let's talk about the digital revolution now, which I love, by the way. I think it's fantastic. But I also think it's cheapening photography now.
Just going back to what you were saying, I've thought over and over again, shall I get one of these fandangled cameras that you sit underneath the hood and take shots?
Everything's upside down, like in a Western.
It's heavy enough to carry the stuff that I'm carrying anyway. And I have thought, because I used to do black and white darkroom stuff.
Yeah.
And I thought it would be nice to go back and do that again. But then I remembered how many hours I used to spend in the darkroom, and it is a magical art to get excellent darkroom pictures, and the faff with chemicals and everything else. And isn't it beautiful to be able to go out, get 20 or 30 images with a digital camera and be able to play with them in Lightroom and do everything? And a comment that was made numerous times is, if Ansel Adams was alive now, would he be shooting with his old large format camera, or would he be shooting with a digital and using Lightroom or Photoshop?
Well,
and everybody says he'd be using Lightroom and Photoshop.
Yeah, of course he would.
I mean, even the greats like Joe Cornish that we mentioned on the previous podcast are going and using digital photography now. Yes, Steve O'Nions.
O'Nions.
Not onions.
Apologies, Steve. Sorry,
Steve.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree.
You understand?
Totally. I agree. I do agree totally.
And I was the one for years, and I had a hiatus of taking pictures because I wouldn't follow the route of digital photography because I thought it was cheating.
Well,
and it's not, because what it does is it enhances your the artistic person in you to create beautiful images. And you just can't do that with film. You can, contradicting myself, you can if you get them scanned in and then you've got your raw file and then you can mess with them in post-production.
That's no different, is it?
No, it's not.
You might as
But
well
you're just
take
putting
it
an extra thing in, aren't you?
Yeah.
No, but look, I'll stick my neck out here right now,
Go on,
and
then.
I'll say something that a lot of people are probably going to disagree with. But I can do something, and so can you guys as well. We can do something right now that most of the kids that grow up or are growing up with the digital age now will never, ever be able to do. And that is go up into our attic and drag out photographs that might be 30, 40, 50-year-olds, dust them down and look through them. Yeah. And that is something I absolutely 100% guarantee you right now kids will never be able to
No,
do.
but they've got it on
But they're-
digital format,
they're not bothered.
and they're not bothered.
Yeah, but they will be in 40 years' time when they've got no pictures of themselves to look back at when they were 4 and 5.
But they
Because
have.
all
Why-
those
why won't
pictures,
they?
because all those pictures would have been dumped somewhere, would have been left on their phone when they swapped it, or would have been lost. Even if you up.
But you just go into your phone and go back to like 2011.
Yeah.
I can show you right now.
It's on the
Yeah,
cloud.
but you can't do that in 40 years' time.
course
Is the
you
point
can.
I'm making.
You'll think it. You'll have an implant in your
No,
brain, and you'll
I-
think it. It'll come up in front
I'm
of
telling you now that'll never happen. And
Yeah.
the reason why I say that, and I'm
I can go on to Spotify now and listen to a song that was written 40 years ago.
Yeah.
No,
Is that
that's-
any different with
yes, that's
with,
completely
with photographs?
different. And the reason being is because you have to buy web space to look after your pictures. Everybody fills this web space with pictures that aren't really. Look, my food. Look at this. Look at that. And I am really saying it all now. I'm really apologise about this. But the point I'm making is, in a year's time when the web space is full, or 5 years' time when the web space is full, we'll dump them pictures there. I want to create some space. I'll dump those old pictures because that's a party I went to 5 years ago. It was a miserable party anyway. I'm never going to look at those pictures again. Gone. Forever.
Can I say the opposite to that is the number of pictures I've got of my children ranks in the thousands. And if I was taking film,
And you don't like your children.
if I was taking film, if I look at the number of pictures of me,
yeah.
which might be a good thing of when I was a kid, there's maybe an album full. Whereas now I've got images, whether the stills, whether the video of my kids growing up, all the way through. And the problem is you're mentioning albums. You go up into your attic, get an album, and it's not the perfect conditions to keep that album in. You get they're all stuck together, they're all faded, watermarked.
Yeah, you're thinking I need to scan these things
I
as
need to
quickly as
scan them,
possible
absolutely.
before I lose them.
Absolutely.
I've done that with old videos.
And I'm one of the people that agrees with you. If you'd have asked me this question 10 years ago, I'd have been siding with you 110%. But, I mean, I've got my old Olympus film camera, and I've toyed with the idea of putting film back in it and going and taking pictures. And I know what will happen.
But it's those old embarrassing pictures that when you were 5 and 6, which is obviously going back some time, kids now, when they're 5 years on, they don't want to look at the old pictures of when they were 5 years younger because they're embarrassing with the haircuts and the clothes that they wore. But that's what makes old pictures special.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And all I'm saying is, with the digital revolution, are we going to lose the ability to do that in 40 years' time?
I don't think so. I think the storage space will continue to increase as computing power increases. And we'll have all that. You'll have instant access to all of it. You'll be able to say to whatever voice-activated AI you've got, show me a picture from the 20th of July.
It's already happening with music
Yeah,
with Alexa,
exactly.
isn't it? It's already happening with these smart TVs where you can pull up images.
I think there is some truth in the thing about the instantness of life now. I think that definitely relates to photography because Instagram is full of pictures. Some of it good, a lot of it rubbish. But the people taking these snapshots, even of landscapes, they're not photographers. It's not photography, is it? It's just people pointing a smartphone at a scene or a person and taking that image. It's not.
Yeah, there's no control over
Yeah,
the settings.
you get a lot of these sort of travel influencers on Instagram, particularly going traveling, and they're taking landscape shots as they go. But they might take 10 in a day of just of the scene. It's not the same as us as landscape photographers going into that environment and spending time there, feeling what the landscape feels like and trying to translate that into an image, taking that time that we're talking about, slowing down and crafting something.
Yeah.
I think that was something that Brendan mentioned when he came here. Brendan Van Son, that he started off as a travel vlogger and started to take pictures. And he said when you looked at my original images, they weren't very good. And he put one on screen. And because it was a different shot, because this talks about learning rules of thirds and stuff like that, he took a shot which was a completely different composition to everybody else, and he sold it to the Daily Telegraph. But he wasn't a photographer as such. He was a blogger and then vlogger that got into photography. And now, because of his subbase, is a major influencer and is getting sponsorship deals left, right and centre. So do you need to be an awesome photographer to be, what's the word? have good exposure and be an influencer these days. No, kids can see that somebody like Paris Hilton can go out and take a picture of a chihuahua's backside and she gets 5 million views. You can take the most awesome picture in the world and you get 10.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, because a lot of the time you see some of the actual landscape pictures that you post that get like a certain level of engagement.
Yeah.
But if you post a picture from your phone of your camera in that landscape, that often gets better views and likes. But I think that's sometimes based on the story. Like people are interested in that human story of you being in that landscape rather than the landscape in isolation. And I think that's where we need as influencers and people that do landscape photography. I think we need to be talking more around landscape photography and trying to increase the interest in people doing landscape photography and thinking about it in a slightly different way of being something different to what some of these travel photographers are doing.
But that's what Brendan said. He said if he took a picture of, I don't know, Yosemite National Park or something and just took the picture, nobody would be interested in buying it. He said if I put myself in that picture, then lots of people would be interested in buying it. And they said he'll be interested in buying it because it could be used for a car advert or an advert to sell backpacks. Or
I really hate those landscape selfies.
So do I, but that's because I'm getting old and I don't look good in the selfie.
Not just that, it's not just that. It's like, I mean, it's not just that. It's when it's the ones of like people facing landscapes. You can't even see their face. No. It's just like, oh, that's not like that. I do it as a thumbnail for my video, for example. But that's not the image I'm creating. It's like,
but that sells.
I know it does, but that's not landscape photography.
No,
is it? It's like it's almost like street photography in the mountains.
They call it travel photography, don't they? Yeah.
There are lots of photographers that only do that.
Oh, it's painful.
And they've got millions of subscribers. You know, I look at what my kids look at. Not my youngest, but my eldest. She's a girl, and it's all those instant people doing all this. And they get millions of views, and you can put the best image in the world on, and you get 3.
It's when I've heard a few photographers talking about like you've got a landscape, and then I'm going to balance the image out by putting myself in it. I'm just like,
yeah, well, you're losing sight of what we do it for.
It's not landscape photography anymore. Like
I'm out vlogging tomorrow. Guess what I'm going to be doing?
Don't do that.
Guess what I'm going to be doing? And I'm going to mention about I need myself in it to balance it.
Yeah.
That's how heavy that side of the picture is. I need to be over here to balance it.
I like a balanced image, but not with a person in it. I think that's probably because I'm a nature photographer at heart. Like,
yes.
Like I don't mind having a building in or something every once in a while, but like I don't want people in my shots.
Well, it's a really interesting comment that, Adam, because when I went up to the Isle of Skye, I was looking for a composition and purposefully didn't want to get buildings in the shot.
Yeah.
And I got the shot and it was mediocre, if that at best. My friend, who's relatively new to landscape shooting, more of a portrait shooter, shot the image completely the opposite way, and it was brilliant. And I says, yeah, but you've got a building in there and a telegraph pole. He says, yeah, but that adds an element of interest into the shot. And he was right. It was a beautifully balanced, composed shot. But he didn't stick himself in there. He wasn't.
No, I was the opposite as well. I just come back from Harris, I just come back just before Christmas.
You clone it out.
Harris and Lewis. And I went up there to shoot landscapes. And I was so blown away by the buildings. Have you been to Harris and Lewis?
No.
There's just disused buildings absolutely everywhere.
I saw your little tour of that disused house though.
Everywhere. They are absolutely everywhere.
Really?
Just like abandoned vehicles, they're everywhere.
For how long have they been abandoned for?
Well, because you're on an island, it's very difficult if you want to scrap a car. How do you scrap a car?
You just leave it.
The chances are it's not drivable to drive on the ferry and off the island to then go and sell it to a scrappy.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, they just dump them. They just dump them and they're everywhere.
Because that house you're in didn't even look that old. Like it's
No, it wasn't, because the original footings from the original house was right next to it. So you could still see the shape of the original house. Because the reason why it's only a footing is because when they wanted to upgrade their houses, they used the same rocks and the same materials. So that's why there's just a footing over here. Now there's a new house. They've used the materials from there and then added with the materials.
Yeah. It sounds a bit like film photography, innit?
Yeah, but
Take a picture.
I found myself working the other way around because it was completely different for me.
Yeah.
In actual fact, I went to make one vlog over a 4 or 5 day period, and I made, I think, 2 vlogs in the first day.
Yeah.
I made 2 because I had so much content, but I was getting all excited because of these old buildings.
Yeah.
But it's amazing how you can just get or find yourself being detracted from one thing you wanted to shoot, then obviously then shooting onto another thing. But yeah, those old buildings and stuff like that, Harris and Lewis, just blew me away. So much so we spent 3 days up there, and I think 80% of everything we did was just shooting old buildings.
Yeah, if you were shooting film photography, would 80% of your shots be those old buildings?
Well, yes and no. That doesn't change. The subject matter doesn't change.
Yeah, but how many shots would you get?
No, that's the point I'm making. The difference is you wouldn't just take a picture and see what it looks like, take a picture. Because how many times do we actually do that? Let's be honest right now on the table. We don't turn up to a location, well, maybe you do, I don't know, and just take one shot and walk away.
No.
I'll spot a composition and I'll take it and I'll think, I wonder what it looks like with the fence on this side, then the fence on this side. Then I'll go from a higher perspective, then I'll go from a lower down perspective. And then in post-production, when I've got all my pictures in front of me, I'll make a conscious decision of which one I prefer.
I don't do that. I do
at that point.
I do it at the scene. I go through that process at the scene and don't take the picture. So say the video I did from Aaron, I did the one vertical shot of the stream and the mountain. I then said, right, I'm going to go down there and take a horizontal shot. That was it. I took 2 pictures in that location and I left. Yeah. And I did one of the mountain in the first part of the day, took 1 shot and left, and then I took 2 seascapes because the sky, the cloud was moving so much. Yeah. So I took 5 images, 2, 4, 6 images
in total.
5 or 6 images in the entire day.
No, I'm a bit like you, Gary. I will alter I've got the scene in my head, and I'll alter the composition ever so slightly, just to maybe bring a foreground element in a little bit more, or something else a little bit more into the shot. But what I spend more time doing is possibly shooting at a different aperture, and also a different shutter speed, just to look at what it looks like in the camera and then get it home in post-production and see which one I can work with the best.
I think that's different though. I think if you take in, if it's the same composition, I do that a lot. So I'll set, particularly at sunset or sunrise, set up the composition, get it set, and then I might take 20 frames. Yeah. Because I can. Yeah. And I just want to get the light at the correct point, and it changes so fast sometimes. Yes. That I want to get it right, and so I'm hedging my bets basically. But I still think that's still 1 shot. Yeah. So even if you play around with the settings a little bit, I still think that's only 1 shot. Yeah. Even if you take 20 frames. Yeah. So I think it's just about. I think it's if you shift the composition, then it's a different shot. Yeah.
It depends how much you shift the composition by. And once I've got the shot in the bag, and I think to myself, right, I've got it now, I'll then play around a little bit just to see. A bit more from it, because we're always learning, aren't we?
And it takes the pressure off, doesn't it?
Absolutely, it takes the pressure off, and then I can play around with slightly different compositions, get them into post. And normally, it's my first composition that's the one I choose, but every so often there'll be one that I think, yeah, that works just a little bit better. Yeah.
But you also don't want to hike somewhere for an hour to take 1 picture, come back and not have a choice. Well, I'm making it sound as if I just turn up and rattle off pictures. And of course, I don't do that.
You don't.
I'm just talking about if I see a fence post, I might take the picture. So I've got my composition, which is quite nice. Got the fence post coming down, nice leading line, blah, blah, blah. But then I'll take my picture and think, if I lower my camera down, you're going to obviously greatly increase your foreground. And then that fence post now is going to be a lot higher and it'll look a lot more dramatic in the image. So just a basic thing like that, I might change my composition, just because sometimes you could see it in your head, but it's not until you see it in the camera can you actually feel whether you like it or not.
I agree. I agree, and I do a very similar thing. But then again, a lot of the stuff that I do will go onto film, so onto video. So you may see me where one person will concentrate on 1 shot or 2 shots, and nothing wrong with that. I'll maybe do 3 or 4 in that shoot sometimes.
I never change my settings though.
No.
I never change my settings. If I'm going to play around with running water, I tend to have a go-to setup that I shoot. But yes, I'm not saying I don't look at the back of my camera and think, let's try it with a longer shutter speed. Let's try it with a quicker shutter speed. Of course I do. We all do, don't we?
That's what I mean. And also, you were talking about lighting conditions changing. When the lighting conditions change, your settings change, don't they? I mean, you're going to change your shutter speed as regards lighting conditions. And, we're all adept, and I'm sure the majority of people watching this are adept with that triangle. So, for example, when I shot Loch Lomond, it was blowing a hoolie. It was really, really windy. And I was trying to keep things as still as possible, and the only way I could do that was by upping the ISO.
Yeah.
So, we're playing around with things to get the image that we're seeing in our head, or that we're seeing with our eyes, and getting as good reproduction in post-production. So that's why I tweak things and alter things from a settings perspective. Anyway.
I do that though. Yeah. I hiked to the top of Great Gable for 6 hours and took 3 images.
Yeah.
And then left.
I watched that Great Gable one, and you lost the light at the end. Did you not regret possibly taking the shots when you had that really good modelling on the hills?
No, because it wasn't what I wanted.
Right.
So, I think part of that is the privilege of doing it full time. So, if I don't get the shot on Wednesday,
you can go back
at Great Gable. I've had a good day out with my mate climbing a mountain, so it's not a terrible day, but.
No such thing.
Yes,
that's having a good day climbing a mountain.
Yeah, exactly. But from a purely photography perspective, I can afford to let that day go. Do you know what I mean? And it's not about me thinking I've got higher standards than anybody else, but I'm interested in a certain level of image, and I do want to have a good image to show in the vlogs. I was happy with what I got actually. The sort of
you got great shots.
The mountain afterwards, and the one of the wind turbines. Total look, that one. I've got
beautiful
to say.
shot.
But no, the first one with the lake. I wasn't as bothered about that one, but they were literally the 3 frames that I took.
Yeah.
The last one was a bracketed image, but that's just the process I've got. I mean, maybe I'm daft. But
on average, when you come out of a shoot, how many shots will you have got on average? Not
I show everything. I show everything that I take.
The compositions you do, but how many clicks of the shutter would you say you get in an average
on that
session?
one? That one, it was very few because it was so cold.
You're daft if what you do doesn't work sometimes, but if what you do works every time, then you're not daft.
Yeah,
true.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, particularly for sunrise and sunset, when I'm not sure what's going to happen with the conditions, I'll just be banging off lots of frames.
Yeah.
To make sure that I've got the cloud in the right place. I'm getting the best of what is there, because you don't always know, do you, when you're looking at it, and things change so fast. But if I do a long exposure, it'll be one. I'll just do one, because I think building the workflow like you're talking about, you can follow that workflow every single time.
Yeah.
So I'll take a test frame, I'll work out the exposure time for the filter I'm using.
Yeah.
And then I'll do it. I'll do one. I'll check it afterwards, check for sharpness, and then that'll be it. I know if I've got the shot now.
Of course.
So, yeah. I mean, I tried. I don't know why I do it like that. To be honest, I guess it's some level of efficiency. I'm looking for.
Everybody's different, and everybody does it a different way, don't they?
Yeah, I'm also not advocating the fact that you turn up and start rattling off pictures, but if that's what you do and it works for you, then it doesn't matter.
No, I'm not saying. I'm not saying I'm right.
I think that's something we all agree on, is to go and just rattle image after image after image with this composition here and that one there and that one there. Possibly isn't the best way to go. You might get home out of 100 shots and get one that you half like, but you've got to slow the process.
And you've probably not learned as much either, have you? Like if you do that. That's not what you're talking about, though, is it?
No, I'm talking about, I like photography so much. You've hiked and you got there, and to take 2 pictures and come away, I'd feel as if I've cheated myself, or there's not enough cake at the end of the journey.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Do you know what I mean?
A question for both of you, just to change the subject ever so slightly.
Twice a year now. Oh, sorry. But don't tell the wife.
Twice a year, you lucky man. As regards, your camera, are you shooting everything in manual, or do you use aperture priority? Or, I mean, I buy an expensive
Can't believe you
camera.
asked that question.
I buy an expensive camera and I've switched lots of everything off and shoot in manual.
Manual.
Everything is in manual.
Manual, everything.
I use the autofocus sometimes on the Canon 5D Mark IV because it's so accurate.
Yeah.
That I use that sometimes. I mean, sometimes I don't. I'll manual focus, but
And focusing, where do you focus?
Be boring. Always a third of the way to the frame. The only time that ever changes is when the foreground interest is a lot closer to the camera.
Yourself, Adam?
I mean, I think there's too much talk about hyperfocal distance.
Yeah.
Like people worry about it and it's unnecessary. Just do what Gary says. Like focus a third away into the image. If I think there is not a specific subject or focal point of your image.
Yeah.
So and I say focal point, not the bit you focus on, but just where you, like if you're creating leading lines, where is the vision, or where is the pathway finish in your image? If that's something specific, like a lighthouse or something, then focus on that. If you've got a specific subject, like a tree, is your main subject of your image, then focus on that.
What do you think about this? Seems to be the in thing at the moment of focusing to infinity, because it just it's something that I'm not used to.
No, definitely.
I don't.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
I'd certainly advise against that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
I mean, your camera focus system or your camera or the pictures themselves are a lot less forgiving after the focus point.
Yes.
And not only that, but of course, because the subject matter after the focus point is further away from the camera, it becomes less obvious. So the only time that would...
What do you mean by that, Gary? So after the focus point, what do you mean by that? So if I
If you're
focused a third of the way...
focused a third of the way into the frame,
Yeah.
if, say, for instance, in infinity isn't quite in focus, it doesn't matter because it's so far away.
Yeah.
The mountains in the distance, almost like you'd expect them to not be pin sharp.
That goes back to my old oil painting analogy of the things that were softer in the background. So how are you going to get away with focusing to infinity then? By focus stacking? Or are you going to accept a softer image?
I can't say I never focus stack. The only time I'll ever focus stack is when it's inappropriate for me to focus a third of the way into the frame.
Yeah.
So if, like the shot you took when you were at Aaron, you took that vertical shot looking up the stream, naturally a third of the way into the frame is your foreground interest.
Yeah, it was
So instantly you focus on there, so you know everything's going to be in focus. But if all of a sudden the stream was only 2 feet away from your camera, now you have an issue.
Yeah.
Because you now have to focus 2 feet, then maybe a third. Yeah. And then if you wanted to, infinity and then focus stack them that way, if that makes sense.
So there's no advantage to focusing to infinity?
No, absolutely. Well, no, if you focus to infinity, anything that's close to your frame, even at f22, anything that's close to your frame will be out of focus.
Right.
The thing with focusing is I get a lot of questions about it, and it's not something I really talk about because I want to keep it as simple as possible.
Yeah.
Firstly, don't worry about it.
No.
Yeah.
Then focus a third into your frame or focus on your subject or your focal point.
Yeah.
But the thing is, take the picture and then through the beauty of digital photography, bring the picture up.
Or wait a week later.
Zoom in 10x.
Absolutely.
And check it. And
Yeah.
if it's not right, do it again.
Yeah.
And just... people are put off by focusing. I think it's something that holds people back, and it's just experiment. Have a little go. Like you've got, especially if you've got your camera set, you've taken your time. You're on the tripod. Your composition is the same. Like you say, just muck around with the settings just a little bit.
I mean, it's so easy.
Yeah, it is.
Because live view, single point autofocus, then you can actually move the focus point across to the foreground interest, the oak tree or the waterfall, and then focus on that, and then you're away.
To wrap it up then, Gary, how do you do that with film photography?
Because exactly the same way. No, but exactly the same way. But you don't have the beauty of doing what you've done. So now you've got to think, right, this is my composition. I can't see my result, and I won't be able to see it for a week.
You've got to be an old pro. That's what
You
I-
do.
So now
You are an old pro.
No, but now you've got to think about that process.
Yes.
You have to think about that
Yes.
process. And of course, because you can't focus stack film,
Yes.
if you do have something that's only 2 feet in front of you,
Yeah.
you also now have to make another conscious decision.
Yeah.
If you focus, even at f16, if someone's 2 foot in front of you,
Yeah.
okay, by the time you've gone 20 foot into the frame, it's out of focus.
Absolutely, and I think that's why.
But that makes you then think about the whole process.
Maybe that's why we don't focus to infinity.
But do you know
We
what?
are
You know,
old
on a
pros.
hyperfocal distance, if you wanted to calculate, this is ever so strange because what you could actually do is before you left this building now, get your camera out of your bag, set it to f11 and tape it up. Set your focus. If I'm using a 24mm lens, which is what I generally shoot on a full frame camera for all my landscapes, is a 24mm lens, then I can the hyperfocal distance is about 6 feet. So I can actually focus in here 6 feet away and tape it up.
Yeah.
So now I can go out and shoot in manual, and the only thing I have to change all day long is my shutter speed according to how much light there is.
Yeah.
And that's how easy, in theory, landscape photography can be if you so wish it to be.
Yeah.
Does that make
Makes
sense?
absolute sense. And
Yeah, it does. I mean,
you're
we're
going
not
back to.
belittling anybody's concern about
Nope.
focusing.
Where you
but it's-
focus.
I don't.
I just think that what happens is we, as beginners, people are told that this is what you need to do, and then are disappointed with the results.
Yet again, it's that sole focus on the technical aspects of photography, particularly the way it's taught.
Yeah.
Is that sole focus on the technical aspects and the idea that you need to learn hyperfocal distance.
Yeah.
Just it isn't. It's not accurate. It's not true, and you don't need to learn it. Like it's.
Nope.
If it's certainly not at first.
No,
Like,
because you mentioned what do? You take the picture, and because we've got
have a
digital
look at
format, we can zoom in and we can say it's good. We don't have to wait a week and a half. So I think we answered that question.
Well, in a roundabout way, absolutely.
One thing I've just been thinking about is the question I get asked a lot is, particularly from some more experienced amateur photographers, is how much money you make from selling prints.
Oh, this is interesting.
So I was just interested in your opinion on that. Do you sell prints? Like what's,
It depends what your audience is. I know one excellent landscape photographer that has deals with department stores and sells a lot of prints. And he sells a lot of prints because he targets non-photographer audience on Facebook and other social media. I think if you're a landscape photographer and your audience is other landscape photographers, how many prints do landscape photographers buy from other landscape photographers? Not many, in my opinion. I've bought one in the last 2.5, 3 years. And then I've got reproductions of people like Ansel Adams and stuff like that because I appreciate their art. But am I going to spend £400-500 for somebody's image that I can get a very similar image, and then it's my image and I put it on my wall? So personally,
I don't have one picture on my walls at home.
of any photography?
Bear in mind what I do for a living.
yeah, maybe it's more of a busman's holiday
Isn't that
for
really
you.
strange?
Yeah.
I get contacted quite often about I want to buy some of your frames. I want to buy some of your pictures and how much and so on and so forth. So I then very quickly went onto my website and created a shop area, and that's where it's ended. I've attempted to put one picture up, and obviously then the idea was obviously I'm going to create more and more and more. And so basically that's an ongoing thing. I definitely want to start selling pictures. I believe there's an interest in the work that we all shoot, and it's probably sellable. Some of them are certainly sellable, but I haven't done it yet. I haven't put them on the website yet. But it's like anything. You get so many jobs, don't you, that you end up miles behind or in a queue. I'll do that tomorrow. I'll do that tomorrow. Tomorrow never comes. So in answer to your question, I want to sell pictures, but I don't sell pictures yet. But if I did, they would only be on my website. I wouldn't sell them to stock because I don't believe there's money in stock photography anymore. Although there's probably people who make a lot of money from stock photography, but that's probably down to volume.
Yeah.
Yourself?
I don't think there's a big market. I mean, I know there isn't a big market there. Speaking to other landscape photographers as well, there is still a small commercial market, but it's certainly in terms of selling to the end user.
Yeah.
The market's very small. I sell a few.
Yeah.
I've got them. I'm not. I sell a few enough that I'm not always putting new pictures up, even though I probably should. Even when people express interest, sometimes I never get round to putting them up. But it also, I think, it depends on how you value them. Mm-hmm. So I value mine in a certain way based on the size of the print, the effort I've gone to produce it, the cost I've gone to produce it, and what I think it's worth as well. How it's presented, whether it's framed or not, as well, obviously forms part of that. So I think I probably price myself out of the area that a lot of people are operating in when they buy landscape photography. Yeah. So you can go down into Leeds city centre on a Saturday or Sunday sometimes, and there's market stalls there, one of which will be a photographer. Got a big stall selling loads of different prints, and he or she might sell 200 pictures that day for 20 quid each.
It's a £3 markup.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's decent money, decent revenue, isn't it? It's not bad, but there's been a cost of producing that. There's been a cost of then getting the market stall, and it isn't cheap in Leeds city centre.
No.
The cost of being there for the day. And it's also then the value in their work really quite cheaply. So I think there's such a mix of things, and I
didn't know that market existed, by the way.
Yeah. Well, Leeds market or
no, the market for selling landscape pictures to people in the street over a market store.
You never heard about going out to a market and flogging tat?
It's not even
the thing is, market for years.
The thing is, I was in this one stall in Leeds, and it wasn't even tat. There were good pictures.
No, I didn't mean that. I'm just doing the only fools and horses analogy.
But they are good pictures that this guy was selling. But I mean, I don't want to value my work in that way. It's not. The thing is that you get quite a lot of people who are particularly interested in making a little bit of money from their photography who think that there is money to be made in prints, and I'm not sure there is.
Don't think there is. There's some people that make out that there's a lot of money to be made in prints.
Yeah, it's not.
I think two areas of good revenue for people who are well known enough is, number one, we know, is the calendar revenue, and also these desk coffee table books. Also, if you've got a good following, but it's a risk to spend 20 grand on.
That's why they all do pre-order, don't they?
But
Absolutely,
but you don't need to do that. Obviously, if you order 20,000, books, coffee table books, or whatever, you're going to get your prices down. But you don't. You only need to order 10.
Yeah.
You only need to order 10 as long as your markup is as such. You just get a back order of 10 and then order 10 books.
Absolutely.
That's the beauty of the modern day digital world that we live in.
Yes. Well, I know
going back on what I was saying
there
earlier.
are people that are ordering, 1,000 copies of a book, and they're selling out 1,000 copies of a book.
But maybe I need to start selling some.
I won't mention it, but the individual I'm thinking of is an exceptional Lake District photographer, and his stuff is absolutely stunning. And I have his book, and I think the sell for about 20.
Give him a mention then?
Yeah, James Bell. Stunning work for the last 15 to 20 years, and his first book sold out 1,000 copies, and his second book is on pre-order. And looking at his stuff on Facebook, he's getting orders coming in, and
I think I've seen it actually.
Yeah, $29.95 his book is. And there is a profit to be made in that, but basically it's a year's worth of landscape shots.
Yeah, it's a nice gift as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and the beautiful images, gorgeous images. He's got a studio in what's it called, Glenridding,
right?
And if you ever go to Glenridding, go pop in and have a look. He's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
Let me turn it back around again now. I think the value in photography has been shot by the digital revolution.
Oh, absolutely.
Again, but let me explain. Is that people contact me, we do commercial work here, and people will contact me and basically say, can you take some photographs of these watches? I only want small pictures for my website. So they're only seeing, you give me the value of this 72 DPI image that I'm going to put on my website because it's only a website and it's only a watch. And they don't actually realize all the work that goes into taking a picture of a watch in a studio and controlled lighting,
Absolutely.
and then post-processing that work. They've no idea. And they'll always come to you and say, I only want one picture for my website. And they think that you should value the picture on, okay, well, we'll just call it £2.50. The fact it's taking you all day to take that picture, another half a day to post-process that work. I know it's only a watch, but you'd be surprised.
You should just say, have you got the watch with you now? That's a bang. There you go. That costs you £2.50.
Yeah.
That's it.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's it. And that's a fact. That's a fact. And the minute you come back and you say, well, it's a day rate, I've got 4 watches to photograph. Well, it's a day rate. Plus, if you then want them post-processed, or unless I can take the photographs in the morning and post-process them, it'll be a day rate. And it's like, how much? I only want 4 pictures for my website. And quite literally, that's the conversation you're having with them. Yeah. And like you said, well, that's fine. Just bring them in and I'll take a picture. Job done. There you go. I'll email them to you.
It's an argument for another day, isn't it?
Yeah. Feels like a natural endpoint, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
Yeah. So that was episode 3 of Photo Nerds.
Absolutely.
Wow. Are we going to wear different clothes next week?
Yeah. Sounds like a good idea. Yeah.
No, I've enjoyed it. I quite enjoyed the banter, the openness, and this is good. It's a lot of fun.
So what I'd say is if you guys enjoy it, then subscribe, click the notification button.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching and putting up with the 3 of us just talking nonsense, really, about all things photography related, but stuff that means a lot to us.
Yeah, let us know what you think as well.
Oh, questions. If you got any questions for the next podcasts, let us know and we will attempt to answer them.
Very good.
Bye
See you
for
soon.
now.